And now, a word from our sponsor, SpyCloud, the cybercrime analytics leader. SpyCloud disrupts cybercrime by telling you what criminals know about your business and your customers, so you can take action to prevent ransomware, account takeover, and online fraud. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, including credentials, cookies, and PII siphoned from malware-infected devices. With knowledge of the specific data criminals have in hand from InfoStealer malware on managed and unmanaged devices, security teams can respond with a more efficient and effective process called post-infection remediation. Get SpyCloud's post-infection remediation guide outlining the 7 steps for preventing a malware infection from becoming a full-blown ransomware incident. Visit spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire. And we thank SpyCloud for sponsoring our show. The FAA attributes its January NOTAM outage. Malicious OneNote attachments are appearing in phishing campaigns. The Vastflux ad campaign has been disrupted. Ukraine moves toward closer cybersecurity collaboration with NATO. Rick Howard considers the best of 2022. Deepen Desai from Zscaler looks at VPN Risk. And finally, we're betting you want alerts for sportsbook customers and online gamers. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Monday, January 23rd, 2023. The Wall Street Journal reported late last week that the FAA has traced the cause of this month's NOTAM outage to an error committed by IT contractors during synchronization of backup files. The Journal wrote, "The Federal Aviation Administration said Thursday that a contractor working for the air safety regulator had unintentionally deleted computer files used in a pilot alert system, leading to an outage that disrupted U.S. air traffic last week. The agency, which declined to identify the contractor, said its personnel were working to correctly synchronize 2 databases, a main one and a backup used for the alert system when the files were unintentionally deleted." BleepingComputer reports that criminals are using OneNote files attached to malicious spam emails to install remote access Trojans, the Quasar rat among them. OneNote doesn't use macros, and so malicious files have in many cases escaped detection by the usual technical screening tools. The attachments do generate a familiar general warning stating, "Opening attachments could harm your computer and data. Don't open it unless you trust the person who created the file." But experience shows that many users regard the warning as pro forma background noise and click through anyway, thereby installing the rat. The Vastflux ad fraud operation has been disrupted by researchers at the security firm Human. Most of the affected apps were developed for iOS. The researchers write, "At its peak, Vastflux accounted for more than 12 billion bid requests a day. More than 1,700 apps and 120 publishers were spoofed, and the scheme ran inside apps on nearly 11 million devices. It made money through click fraud, stacking large numbers of invisible ads beneath visible advertising banners. Up to 25 video ads would run behind the user's active window. Human Security's description of the campaign portrays a criminal enterprise that operated with a degree of sophistication. The name Human gave the operation, Vastflux, for example, alludes to the fast flux technique the criminals employed to evade defenses by rapidly moving across a large number of IP addresses and DNS records associated with a single domain. It also showed considerable familiarity with the online advertising sector. Human writes, The fraudsters behind the Vastflux operation have an intimate understanding of the digital advertising ecosystem. They evaded ad verification tags, making it harder for this scheme to be found. So, Vastflux is down, for now anyway, and bravo to Human and its partners for the takedown. But as the researchers note, the perpetrators remain unidentified, and they can be expected to attempt a comeback. So continued vigilance is in order, but cooperative defense of this kind has one signal virtue. It makes the hoods work harder to pull off a successful grift. Turning briefly to the cyber phases of Russia's war against Ukraine, last week Ukraine signed an agreement to join NATO's Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence. The CCDCOE is based in Tallinn, Estonia. Ukraine's accession to the center will become official once the center's current members sign the agreement, but that agreement is widely expected to come swiftly. Closer cooperation is seen as benefiting both Ukraine and NATO. Natalia Kachuk, who directs information security and cybersecurity at Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, told The Record, "Ukraine's experience is unique, and we are ready to share it with our allies. From the public-private partnership and effective involvement of cyber volunteers to methods of detecting and neutralizing cyber attacks from Russia." Russian cyber attacks against Ukraine have fallen well short of expectations during Russia's war, but according to The Hill, that's not for lack of trying. Ukrainian officials put the number of cyber attacks against their country during 2022 at more than 2,000, with most of them originating in Russia. Yuri Shaigal, head of the State Service for Special Communications and Information Protection, said in a media availability covered by Reuters, "Essentially, all hackers who work with Russia, most of them don't even hide their affiliation. They are all funded by the FSB, Russia's Federal Security Service, are on military service, or are in the employ of those agencies." Breaking Defense says U.S. officials warned late last week that while there are reasons for optimism, it's important for organizations to keep their guard up and to recognize that Ukraine has for several years worked to perfect its defenses in ways that not many other countries have. So, hey everybody, do you bet on sports? Neither do we. But if you did, you might want to check your six, as they say over in the Air Force. One of the after effects from the MailChimp breach disclosed on January 13th has been the possible compromise of personal information over at the FanDuel sportsbook site. BleepingComputer reports that FanDuel has found that audience data for 133 customers has been exposed, and that those customers should be on the alert for account takeover attempts and phishing. As has been reported in connection with the recent MailChimp breach, the numbers of affected individuals didn't appear to be particularly large. The data isn't as sensitive as it might be, apparently consisting only of customer names and email addresses, but of course even slim information can be of use in social engineering attempts. And finally, gamers, be ready for trouble the next time you squad up. Gaming website Rock Paper Shotgun reports chatter that modders are abusing remote code cheats to alter opponents' stats and disable accounts in Rockstar Games' Grand Theft Auto. The gaming news outlet Video Games published a public service announcement yesterday that warned, "You may want to hold off playing GTA Online on PC for now, as a new exploit gives hackers complete control over your account, and there's not much you can do about it." The news about Rockstar, whose most famous title is Grand Theft Auto, comes from gamer chatter on Twitter and news accounts. Video Games describes the possible effects. The exploit lets hackers alter your character, change and remove stats, and even outright ban or delete your account. That's not the only case being reported. In an unrelated incident, Riot Games tweeted late Friday, "Earlier this week, systems in our development environment were compromised via a social engineering attack. We don't have all the answers right now, but we wanted to communicate early and let you know there is no indication that player data or personal information was obtained." Esports says that the attack preceded the start of various leagues in the League of Legends esports circuit. You know what? It occurs to us that FanDuel can let you place bets on esports. Not that you necessarily would, of course, but, it's possible, or so we hear. Not that we would, Coming up after the break, Rick Howard considers the best of 2022. Deepen Desai from Zscaler looks at VPN risk. Stay with us. And now, a word from our sponsor, Barracuda. Right now, everyone is talking about cryptocurrency, and the cyber criminals are hiding in the conversation. Cyber criminals use social engineering loaded with urgency and fear to successfully prey on your company, your employees, and your customers. Spear phishing is just one of 13 types of email threats. Barracuda has identified these 13 types and shows you how you can protect your company, your customers, and your reputation. Find out about the 13 email threat types and Barracuda email protection. Get your free ebook at barracuda.com/cyberwire. And we thank Barracuda for sponsoring our show. This episode of the CyberWire is made possible in part by Strider Technologies. Strider is the first strategic intelligence tool built to help companies, government agencies, and research institutions protect their innovation and compete in a new era of global strategic competition. With trillions of open-source data points, Strider's technology and intelligence solutions enable you to proactively identify, manage, and respond to state-sponsored intellectual property theft and supply chain risks. Learn how to secure your technology talent and supply chains at striderintel.com. And it is always my pleasure to welcome back to the program Rick Howard. He is the CyberWire's Chief Security Officer and also our Chief Analyst. But more important than any of that, he is the host of the CSO Perspectives show.
Exactly
and Rick,
right, Dave.
if you're showing up here, that must mean that CSO Perspectives over on the pro side of the CyberWire is cranking up for a new season. So what do you got in store for us here today, Rick?
That's right, my friend. Okay, it's CSO Perspectives. It's starting its 12th season, if you can believe that.
I can't. First of all, CyberWire has only been 7 years, so you're like multiple seasons per year, right?
It's kind of like dog years, just...
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And so we have the interns, locked up in the bowels of the CyberWire Sanctum Sanctorum, and they've been working on some fantastic stories. But for this week, we are looking back in 2022 and highlighting some of the best podcasts and books that help me understand the cybersecurity landscape with a little more clarity. So I call this being a student of the cybersecurity game.
Well, I know you are a big book guy with all of your volunteer work over on the Cybersecurity Canon Project. What was your favorite cybersecurity book of 2022?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to pick two, Dave, right? The best cybercrime book that I've read in the past decade is Andy Greenberg's latest called Tracers in the Dark.
Right. You interviewed Andy about that book right before the holiday break. Actually, I listened to that just recently. Quite a story there.
It's an amazing story, right? And it's about a group of researchers first, then entrepreneurs, and then law enforcement officials, and how they figured out how to trace accounts on the Bitcoin blockchain that resulted in a series of high-profile arrests in the cyber underworld. And the bottom line here, Dave, is if you thought your Bitcoin history was anonymous, think again, because it is decidedly not. They figured out to determine all that stuff, right? So watch out, all you people in the cyber underground. The second book I really want to highlight here is George Finney's Project Zero.
That makes sense, because I know that Zero Trust is one of your key strategies you've been talking about for a while on the podcast.
Yeah, and George is one of the smartest cybersecurity practitioners on the planet. And as you would expect from George, his practical descriptions of the key elements of the zero trust philosophy are just perfect. So, in this episode of CSO Perspectives, we talk about those two books and a bunch of other books and podcasts that I found valuable last year.
All right. Well, that is on the CSO Perspectives Pro on the subscription side of our network. What's going on over on the public side?
Yeah, every season we roll out old episodes in the CSO Perspectives archives, and to allow our listeners a chance to see what they're missing by not being a pro subscriber. And so this week, because we got to get the cash coming in.
Sure. There's suits down the hall, the bean counters. We gotta make them happy. It makes it all happen. Yeah,
exactly right. And so this week's show is Rick the Toolman episode from May of 2022. It's everything you ever wanted to know about the relatively new idea called software bill of materials, or SBOMs.
Ah, yes, very good. Well, that is over on the CSO Perspectives public feed. Before I let you go, what is the phrase of the week over on the Word Notes podcast?
Yeah, this week's word is CERT with an I for Cyber Incident Response Teams, and we try to clear up the industry confusion on what exactly is the difference between a CERT with an I, a CERT with an E for Computer Emergency Response Team, and a SOC for a Security Operations Center. And we even have a cool clip from an old TV show, Dave, and I know you appreciate. Do you remember 24 with Jack Bauer and all that? Well, it's a fantastic show. And they have a CERT with an I in action. So you need to come listen to that.
All right. Well, you can check it all out. It's on our website, thecyberwire.com. That's CSO Perspectives. Rick Howard, thanks for joining us. And joining me once again is Deepen Desai. He is the Global CISO and Head of Security Research and Operations at Zscaler. Deepen, it's always great to welcome you back to the show. I want to touch today on the report that you and your colleagues recently released. This is your 2022 VPN Risk report. What can you share with us today?
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for having me here. And what a perfect topic to kick off the discussion. So, the VPN report that we published involved Threat Labs team looking at some of the attacks over the past couple of years where VPN was being targeted as one of the entry points. And as part of this research, we spoke to hundreds of cybersecurity professionals to get their insight as well when it comes to the state of VPN and the rise in VPN vulnerabilities and the threat landscape that's targeting that. So some of the key findings, 78% of the organizations that we spoke with are concerned about ransomware attacks, which is not surprising because many of the ransomware attacks, as we have seen in several high-profile breaches, starts with targeting that VPN concentrator or leveraging a compromised credential to get inside the network. And because of the way VPN is architected, it brings the user on the same network as your business critical applications, which allow threat actor to perform lateral movement and achieve the targets. 65% of companies were already considering VPN alternatives. About 44% of the organizations reported increase in exploits targeting their VPN infrastructure since adopting the remote work. This again aligns with what we're hearing from US CERT and various regional agencies that there are dozens of threat actor groups that are specifically going after VPN concentrators to get a foothold inside the environment.
Now, I'm curious when it comes to the providers of VPNs themselves. I think particularly on the consumer side, it's fair to say there's a wide spectrum in the quality of the providers there. On the B2B side, are things better? Is it easier for folks to shop around and find a high quality VPN provider?
Yeah, so I do see, two types of VPN being mixed up by most folks, right? So the consumer side, I mean, the regular user, when they think of VPN, they're looking to anonymize, right? For privacy reasons, they would rely on some of these VPN providers when they're visiting internet-bound destinations. So those are anonymizer VPN kind of services that provide privacy to the end user. So there's no tracking, there's no source profiling being done. The VPN that we're talking about as part of this report are the one that provides remote access to your corporate environment, to your business applications. Right? That's the VPN we're focusing on for this report. And it's not about good quality VPNs or one vendor is better than the other. It's inherently the underlying architecture. It's several decades old, right? And the concept of bringing a user on the same network as other users, as well as your applications. Even if you have ACLs and other criteria defined, what we're starting to see is threat actors will weaponize the payload with zero-day exploits. And then once they're on the network, they will exploit those vulnerabilities and gain escalated privileges and move laterally. So it's the architecture that is being exploited. And that's where most of these organizations are looking to move towards zero trust. So one of the stat of the report calls out 80% of the organizations are already in the process of adopting zero trust, which is a perfect alternative to VPNs.
So what are your recommendations then? I mean, based on the information that you all gathered in this report, what would you say to folks out there who are either using VPNs or considering it, or I suppose, as your report points out, some folks are looking for alternatives?
Yeah, so one of the easiest way to think about how are you improving your security posture, how are you providing secure remote access to your business critical application is, what if one of those endpoints that's trying to connect to your internal systems, right? It could be your employee endpoint, is compromised, right? Is infected, or one of your user identity were to get compromised. You need to ask yourself a question. What is the blast radius from that machine that is coming in through VPN, right? Or any technology for that matter. And that basically will clearly outline the advantages that a true zero trust solution provides. And the reason I gave this example was there's a lot of noise out there, even when it comes to usage of zero trust, right? Every other vendor is saying they're a zero trust solution. So in order to think holistically, like ask yourself this question, whatever technology you're adopting, is it providing you true user to app and app to app segmentation that will reduce the blast radius from a single compromised asset? And if the answer is yes, then you're doing it right? If the answer is like, oh, it will require me to set up these networking rules, firewall rules, that's a old way of doing it.
All right. Well, interesting information for sure. Deepen Desai, thanks for joining us. MISSY is a nonprofit organization formed exclusively to further and promote charitable, educational, and scientific purposes, including furthering innovation in cybersecurity through education, global technology partnerships, investment, and community engagement to create a collaborative network of subject matter experts and cyber professionals. Their mission accelerator facilities and programs thrive on finding fresh ideas, technologies, and the people with the passion needed to repurpose current and emerging cyber technologies into capabilities at maximum speed. For information on how you can get involved, please visit missy.tech. And we thank MISSY, the Maryland Innovation and Security Institute, for sponsoring our show. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Don't forget to check out the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast, where I contribute to a regular segment called Security. I join Jason and Brian on their show for a lively discussion of the latest security news every week. You can find Grumpy Old Geeks where all the fine podcasts are listed. The CyberWire podcast is a production of N2K Networks, proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. This episode was produced by Liz Irvin and senior producer Jennifer Iben. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. The show was written by John Petrick. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Hey everybody, Rick here. If you're anything like me, you hate commercials. So subscribe to CyberWire Pro and get all of our public podcasts ad-free, as well as our exclusive CyberWire Pro podcasts, briefings, articles, events, and bonus content. Designed for the busy professional, CyberWire Pro cuts through the noise and disinformation, giving you access to actionable reporting, trends, analysis, and insight on global events occurring in the industry, all at your fingertips. Subscribe to CyberWire Pro today for only $9.99 a month, or save with an annual subscription for only $99. That is well worth it to get rid of all of those commercials. Visit thecyberwire.com/pro to subscribe today.